If you could take care, you were a quartermaster, you can sure in hell take care of running a, department store, where in the second floor of the ladies department. You know what I mean?
Yes. If you're a quartermaster, you'd probably run a department store on the second floor in the ladies department. How does he know the ladies department's on the second floor? This might explain a lot. That's Lunch Bucket Joe. He's the President of the United States. You know, his family, they are business geniuses. That's the thing about them. They're just really good at business. Pay no attention to any of the allegations about wrongdoing. Never mind that the Treasury Department refuses to hand over more than 150 suspicious activity reports to the Congress. Why would the Treasury Department hand over more than 150 suspicious activity reports to Congress? Why would that be important? Oh, well, the branches of government and oversight and things like that. Well, forget about that. Don't you know who's in charge? The Democrats. That's who, and the media. But I repeat myself. Amazing stuff. Yeah, so we've got that, and there's more news on this today. Remarkably, the Biden family's business. Do you prefer acumen or acumen? Acumen. Some prefer acumen to acumen. It's like accuse, A-C-C, accuse, acumen, A-C-C-U, acumen or accuse. So many, the more common pronunciation is acumen, but some say it should be acumen. But never mind that. They're very talented business people. And forget about the Trump family and all their business dealings all over the world and all those tall buildings with their names on them and things like that. But no, that's not what we're talking about. Now, there is a new story out today from the, by the way, happy Wednesday to you and welcome. We are, of course, at 888-630-9625. And we've been talking about, all the transgender stuff. Now, you can check non-binary on your Virginia driver's license when you go to get or your photo ID if you're not capable of driving. You can check non-binary, male, female, not sure. It should really say not sure, don't you think? That's what non-binary means. If you look up non-binary in the dictionary, it says not sure, not really not sure. Completely unclear on these not very important matters, what your gender is. So and thousands in Virginia have asked for non-binary. And I want to know what the police do. What are the police supposed to do when they arrest you and your driver's license says you're non-binary? Whose go do they toss you into? Which one? Into which whose go do you go? That's an important question, I think. And now I learned, talking to a police officer friend of mine, my friend police officer Paul, who let me know that he recently purchased a firearm, and they asked him when he was purchasing the firearm on the firearm purchase form. They have forms for this sort of thing, and they've got numbers and stuff. It's form 4473. And they ask you, are you male, female, or non-binary? Because the Democrat Party is completely insane. And then, of course, a group of sorority sisters, and it's the University of Wyoming, the University of Wyoming, Kappa Kappa Gamma. That's a sorority house. And there are only 7 women because it's the University of Wyoming, and it's Kappa Kappa Gamma. So there are 7 women that are members of the Kappa Kappa Gamma sorority at the University of Wyoming, and they live, as you might imagine, in a sorority house. And they were compelled to take a dude who goes by the name Artemis Langford, 21 years old, 6'2", 260 pounds, doesn't really look anything like a lady. And now the 7 women in the Kappa Kappa Gamma house, the sorority sisters, they're suing the University of Wyoming. They say that now they've broken their silence because they've had enough. They say, they're quoting now, they live in constant fear in our home, live in constant fear. And they describe the hulking student who is biological male and has biological male parts. The hulking student has become physically aroused around them. Now, this is what the Democrat Party is doing to sororities on college campuses in Wyoming. You can only imagine what's going on in Manhattan. I'll take Manhattan, the Bronx, and Staten Island too. I gotta tell you, some girls live in constant fear in their home, and our home is supposed to be a safe space. One young woman said. They're afraid to give their names. It is seriously an open female space. It is so different than living in the dorms, for instance, where men and women can commingle on the floors. That's not the case in a sorority house. We share just a couple of main bathrooms and the upstairs floor. And here's a picture of them, and they look like they're fun. Then there's this big old dude who looks like he's, this is the picture that comes out after he's been arrested. You see the picture? Yeah, the crouching behind them. Oh, now, look, you can do whatever you want, dude, except, live in a sorority house and all that. And he's 21 years old, a college sorority girl, 6'2" and 260 pounds. And the entire Democrat Party applauds this, and they say, that's real good. Isn't that good? They're in favor of that. And the women live in terror because of the Democrat Party. And the 6'2", 260-pound biological male walks around fully engorged in the sorority house. And the Democrat Party tells the sorority girls to sit down and shut up. That should be the Democrat Party slogan, don't you think? For the 2024 campaign, whoever it is, maybe it'll be Hillary. Sit down and shut up should be the Democrat Party slogan. Yep. Another student, female student, a biological female student, said the situation is particularly distressing because some of her sisters have been sexually assaulted or sexually harassed and want to feel safe inside their sorority house. Well, the Democrat Party's message is sit down and shut up.
You'll get nothing and like it.
So Judge Smales just dropped in there. So some girls live in constant fear, and this is what your Democrat Party is doing. The lawsuit that they have filed alleges that Langford, the biological male, stared at the women without talking for hours. He sits there, 260 pounds, engorged on the couch in the sorority house, staring at them for hours without talking. And if you looked at the 260-pound, 6'2" biological male, one sorority member walked down the hall to take a shower wearing only a towel. That's like, the sorority house and Animal House, right? Did they have a pillow fight? Was there a pillow fight? She felt an unsettling presence and turned and saw Mr. Smith, that's the pseudonym, watching her silently. Then he makes those Peter Lorre noises. And all this is okay. This is because the Democrat Party. In another disturbing incident, the lawsuit alleges that Langford, the same person, has become physically aroused. Mr. Smith, his other name, was watching members entering the sorority house, had an erection visible through his leggings. He's wearing leggings because he's a lady, you see. Other times, he has had a pillow in his lap. Boy, Craven told Kelly that there has been an exemption granted for him for his safety, but not for these young women. That individual still comes to the house, still engages in dinner, still sits in the chair and watches the girls. And the Democrat Party's message is sit down and shut up.
What about this person isn't a lady? Well, his penis. Her penis, you bigot.
It's so obvious. It's so biologically fundamental to the core. And we can't allow, culture to be the arbiter of what sisterhood is. It's a shared experience. And it's growth and development and experience is not doing this individual any justice whatsoever. So that's where I think the left gets it wrong, the attorney said. This is University of Wyoming, Kappa Kappa Gamma. They also allege in the lawsuit that the sorority ignored bylaws, the university does. The sorority ignored bylaws, official bylaws, which inducting Langford, the 6'2", 260-pound transgender person, and instead referred to a 2018 guide for supporting our LGBTQIA plus members that says Kappa Kappa Gamma is a single gender organization. Well, but you see, he says he's a lady, and that's all it takes. You put on lipstick and you say, I use she, her pronouns, and now, boom, good is done. That's it. Okay? By the way, there was a transgender massacre. That is to say, a massacre perpetrated by a non-binary transgender Democrat at the Covenant School, you may remember, in Kentucky. Covenant School files motion. This is kind of peculiar. Breaking news last night. Covenant School files motion to block release of trans shooter Audrey Hale's manifesto. The school argues that the release of the information could potentially endanger the security and safety of the school, its staff, and students. More fear and terror. The Covenant School, a Nashville Christian academy that was the site of a brutal mass shooting, a massacre by a transgender killer that killed 3 children and 3 adults, has filed a court motion seeking to intervene in lawsuits demanding the public release of Audrey Hale's manifesto. This, everything just gets weirder and weirder. The National Police Association and Tennessee Firearms Association have separately filed suits against the city with the objective of having the manifesto released. The transgender person had a manifesto, went there and murdered all these people, and the police and the FBI and the Biden administration and the state have refused to release it. And now the school has jumped in, and they're like, you know what? We've had just about enough of this. We don't need another bounce in the media, I guess. So why don't we just move on? And it's out of fear, because they fear the students, the staff, everybody else will be in greater danger once again if and when the manifesto, like the Unabomber, is released. Okay. That's not crazy or anything. But, look, the school has their own reasons, I'm sure. And they'd probably like to just move on and not have this keep going on and on. And that's why the crooked lefties that are sitting on the manifesto with great joy, I think, they're refusing to release it because there's something in there that they don't want to go public. What do you think that is? And then it gets released and the school becomes the target of more crazy people. Come on. In fact, my friend Randy, who runs the Chris Plant store, texted me today. Probably the nicest neighborhood in Washington, D.C., the CVS drugstore, has now hired an armed guard to stand out front because the Democrat Party has turned the country into a rolling crime wave. And every place is looted constantly. And the Democrats have passed laws that you can steal anything up to $900 in some jurisdictions, up to $950 in other jurisdictions, and they won't prosecute you. And, I've got an update on the attack at Democrat Congressman Jerry Connolly's house, his office, that happened 2 days ago. I told you about it yesterday. I've got an update on that today, too. Hey, I like to tell the truth. I love the truth. And I like to offer solutions. Well, if you have high blood pressure, maybe you know somebody who has high blood pressure, I want to tell you about some friends of mine, 120 Life. 120 Life. They're a Chicago-based company. They've developed a juice drink that can help lower your blood pressure naturally. 120 Life, natural drink made from pomegranates, tart cherries, cranberries, hibiscus, beetroot, magnesium. Look them up. All these things are good for your blood pressure. Can help lower your blood pressure without side effects. I'm drinking it, and I love it. And I know you're going to love it, too. It helps keep me energized, and it helps me keep my blood pressure in check, too. The truth is, there are easy, natural ways to keep your blood pressure in check, and one of them is 120 Life. So check it out and tell them Chris Plant sent you when you go there. Visit 120life.com on Al Gore's amazing internet. That's 120life.com. You can order a 2-week trial pack of their delicious juice drink. There's a money-back guarantee, too. And when you use the code Chris, that's me, you're going to save 15%. The natural approach to blood pressure management. Visit 120life.com today Start seeing the benefits in just 2 weeks. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, I got an update on the crazy person that attacked the... he beat up an intern with a baseball bat at Connolly's office. It was her first day at work as an intern in the Democrat congressman's office, and the crazy man attacked him. I've got an update on that for you today. And the mailbag. The mailbag coming up, too. Hey, Chris here with some exciting news. Now you can listen to me live on the WMAL app. Doesn't matter if you're in your car, in the office, on the go. The WMAL app delivers crystal clear around-the-clock news coverage anywhere with cell service or Wi-Fi. So don't miss a second of your favorite shows. Download the WMAL app today on the Apple App Store or at Google Play Store. Bow, 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 bow. Yeah, looking at some of the mailbag questions and fun. James Comey, transgender? We'll get to that. Let's go to the telephones in the meantime, shall we? That's right, on your federal gun application forms now, you can check non-binary. On your Virginia driver's license, you can check non-binary. And when you go into a school to massacre everybody, you can, that's the thing, and they won't release your manifesto. Let's go to Rob. Let's go to Rob calling from Annapolis, Maryland, home of the United States Naval Academy. Hey, Rob.
Hey, how you doing, Chris?
I'm great.
Love your show.
Thanks.
So, yeah, I just wanted to make a quick few comments. I'm part of a union in the area, and we are no longer called journeymen. We are called journey workers. And they actually made some of the apprentices, they forced us to go to a Hillary rally once before, and they used to always push Democratic literature on us. But it was funny because the last election cycle, they actually told us to vote for whoever we thought was best for the country.
But they compelled a Hillary rally? The union did?
Oh, absolutely. They always push Democratic candidates on us.
Well, you know why that is, Rob? It's because left-wing groups take over organizations that have a steady flow of money coming to them. And, of course, unions, every union member, yourself included, required, not an option, to provide money, probably a portion of your income, to the union. It all goes up to the union boss. This is like On the Waterfront, you know, the great classic movie, Elia Kazan and Marlon Brando and all that stuff. You know, the unions were corrupted long ago by organized crime and gangsters. And then radical left-wingers took over the unions. And they've taken over lots and lots of organizations. You know, Barack Obama met the terrorist William Ayers when they were using the money of, which millionaire foundation was that in Chicago? They take over these foundations named for millionaires because it's other people's money. And unions, and of course they funnel huge amounts of money to the Democrats because they've been taken over by corrupt people. Okay, we've got John Fetterman news today and Dianne Feinstein news today. We've got Elon Musk, the Washington Post attacking Elon Musk, calling him an anti-Semite because he compared George Soros, who is apparently Jewish, I don't know if you've heard that, to a supervillain, a comic book supervillain named Magneto. I don't know this Magneto. You probably know Magneto, right?
Yes.
And they say that Magneto is Jewish.
Yep.
Is that so?
Yeah, Holocaust survivor.
Okay, all right. So they got that. So you're not allowed to say anything about George Soros, especially when he's getting people killed all over the country by paying for, and that's the correct turn of phrase, all these left-wing prosecutors that put criminals back on the street so they can attack congressmen's offices with baseball bats and stuff, but I'll get to that. Right now, I want to get to the mailbag because Wednesday is mailbag day, and you, our beloved listeners, send questions in for me to answer, and by way of the Twitter, right, and Facebook, and are there other means? Oh, we get some in the mail. We get some in the U.S. mail too, with stamps on them and stuff, and that's fun. But that said, mailbag questions or queries. They could be queries. Some of them could be queries. Some of them might just be questions. Mailbag day. P.T. Gramble, like P.T. Barnum, but P.T. Gramble sends in a question. Do you think that J. Edgar Comey, J. Edgar Comey, James, the former FBI director, do you think that J. Edgar Comey wears women's clothes? Do you think that J. Edgar, he's about 6'7" or something, right? And do you think that J. Edgar Comey wears women's clothes? If so, could he be Azra Turk? Could he be Azra Turk? Now, everybody knows Azra. Well, nobody actually knows Azra Turk. She's part of a secret, clandestine operation. Actually, scratch, it's not clandestine. It's covert operation that was run by the FBI and the CIA against the Trump campaign. It has something to do with the Durham report and another area that I think the Durham report didn't get into. But just to provide a little context here, Azra Turk was a sexy blonde woman who was sent in to, after George Papadopoulos, an advisor to the Trump campaign, was lured to London and to a bar where there was drinking going on, as you might imagine, a bar in London. And a woman who claimed to be named Azra Turk, but we know that to be a lie because it was part of an international covert operation run by American intelligence services against President Trump and the Republican Party, like you might see in a movie about a third world country where in the end everyone gets shot and ends up hanging upside down under bridges and stuff, in the Hollywood movie. So Azra Turk was this woman. The New York Times reported several years ago now that according to their sources, and if you can't believe the New York Times, who can you believe? They're actually part of the seditious conspiracy, along with the Washington Post as well. But the New York Times reported that it was the FBI that sent this woman, a sexy, hot woman offering her sex up to George Papadopoulos in an effort to pump him for information about Russian collusion that never existed, and they knew it the whole time, right? And we still don't know who Azra Turk was. And until I know the real identity of Azra Turk and who sent her and why she was there, I want to see the woman that was playing the role of Azra Turk for the U.S. intelligence services in London in a bar. I want her under oath on Capitol Hill and under threat of going to prison and then under oath. But although that never works, does it? Because like James Clapper lied under oath. They all lie under oath on Capitol Hill, and there are never any consequences because Democrats, because the left, right? So, but I digress. Okay. So, and there's another part to this too, because the long time FBI director, J. Edgar Hoover, was famous, allegedly, for being a transvestite who liked to dress in ladies' clothing and wear red dresses, and he liked to have people call him Mary. See? Mary, I'm a Mary. And when people say I'm a Mary, might have something to do with J. Edgar Hoover allegedly being the transvestite who liked to be called Mary. J. Edgar Hoover was a gay man. He was a gay man. And he had what they used to call a long-term relationship with Clyde Tolson. Clyde Tolson was his man friend. And in fact, if you go to the Congressional Cemetery in Washington, D.C., not too far from the Capitol, but not too close to the Capitol, J. Edgar Hoover is buried there. And there is a big old tombstone with the giant FBI seal on it and stuff and a little fence around it. Very J. Edgar Hoover. Nothing about Mary, no red dress, at least when we were there. My best girl and I visited during the Wuhan, when the Wuhan lockdowns. We said, hey, let's go down and visit the Congressional Cemetery. So we did. And not far from J. Edgar Hoover's grave, his tomb, there is Clyde Tolson. You find Clyde Tolson's grave very nearby. Clyde Tolson was also an FBI employee all those years. And yes, this sort of thing went on. So that's the background from the very well-informed and clever and thoughtful P.T. Gramble question. Do you think that J. Edgar Comey, as I like to call James Comey, wears women's clothes? If so, could he be Ezra Turk? Now, I would say I wouldn't rule anything out on J. Edgar Comey wearing women's clothes. You know, his family are all a bunch of Democrats, and they love Hillary Clinton, and he revealed that at one point. They all went to what they called the Women's March, which was the day after the inauguration of President Trump. There was a lot of violence and looting and arson on the inauguration day of President Trump. And then the next day, the mob met on the Mall, and that's where people like Madonna talked about blowing up the White House, and there was a lot of obscenity and stuff. And J. Edgar Comey said his whole family was in on that whole thing.
My wife and girls marched in the Women's March the day after President Trump's inauguration. At least my 4 daughters, probably all 5 of my kids.
I like the music.
Clinton to be the first woman president. I know my amazing spouse did.
The first woman president, see? Was J. Edgar Comey the first woman FBI director? Does he dress in women's clothes?
I always thought of it as mine, like a diary.
I found your diary underneath the tree. Remember, he wrote up nasty grams about President Trump after he lied to and deceived the president-elect, and then engaged in subterfuge by involving himself of the leak of the so-called dossier, which he knew was really just Hillary Clinton's opposition research.
Did you tell him that the Steele dossier had been financed by his political opponents?
No, I didn't even think I used the term Steele dossier. I just talked about additional material.
He was engaged in a seditious conspiracy to undermine the President of the United States, the elected president, the president-elect at the time. He had been elected, and the FBI director was undermining him. And P.T. Gramble wants to know whether I think J. Edgar Comey wears women's clothes. I'm going to give it maybe not quite 50-50 chance, but maybe. Now, could he be Ezra Turk? I think not, since he's 6'7" or 6'8" or something like that. And we've had Ezra Turk described as a hot little blonde number, a little firecracker that the federal government sent in to undermine the Trump campaign as part of their seditious conspiracy that was run largely out of the so-called Justice Department and the FBI. So good questions, though. I like the could he be Ezra Turk, and does Comey wear women's clothes? Can't rule out the first part, but I think we can rule out the second part. Get a receipt for your vote, sends the question. What's your favorite pizza place in D.C.? You know, that's a tough question, because I'm not sure I really have a favorite pizza place in D.C. We're not famous for great pizza in Washington, D.C. There are a lot of places that have pizza, and I have a lot of favorite places. But none of the favorite places that I go have pizza that I would recommend, you know? There is a place on Connecticut, it's a takeout place where you can go get a slice or you can get a pizza. On Connecticut Avenue, it's called Vace, V-A-C-E, Vace. And everybody's Spanish speaking, you know, not Italian. They make pizza. And since D.C. is not a pizza town, as far as I'm concerned, without having to go all over the place, that's about it for me. Vace. I get slices. Sometimes I leave here. I go get a couple of slices at Vace. And there's, you know what, Pete's New Haven Pizza is pretty good pizza too. And it's not a place I've sat on the patio there on a nice day and had pizza there. Pete's, and that's close to the radio station, so I've been known to go there after the radio show. And to be fair to them, the pizza is pretty good. The pizza is pretty good. It's Pete's New Haven, like Connecticut pizza, and it's pretty good. Now they do some weird stuff, like they have a lot of pizza with seafood on the pizza, because that's the New Haven thing, like clams and squid and stuff like that on the pizza. Me, I'm kind of like an Italian sausage and pretty basic pizza stuff. But again, it's not a big pizza town. So we got that. Dragon Dragan, D-R-A-G-A-N, like the Eastern European name. Dragan Blagojevic. Dragan Blagojevic says Blagojevic. Blagojevic, so that's Blagojevic. I grew up in Chicago. That's Dragan Blagojevic. I've spent a certain amount of time in Eastern Europe in the old days, in the 1990s. Bosnia and Croatia and places like that. What kind of man was Richard Nixon when you met him face to face? Well, my encounter with Richard Nixon was a fairly brief encounter. I was with CNN at the time. I was dispatched with a camera crew to the Four Seasons Hotel in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. I was sent because then CIA Director Robert Gates was embroiled in a controversy that was doubtless on the front page of the New York Times and the Washington Post. And so CNN dispatched me as a producer, field producer, with a two-man camera crew. One of them might have been a woman, but you still call it a two-man camera crew. And we went to the Four Seasons Hotel, and I'm looking around for where the vehicles are arriving and all that stuff to try to get into the right position. And indeed, we got into the right position. And when Director Gates came in, and I had met him a few times, always struck me as a perfectly nice guy. And he was walking toward me, and with him was Richard Milhouse Nixon, the former president of the United States. Now, this is, 1990 something, right? I'd have to look it up to see exactly when it was. And Richard Nixon is walking toward and Robert Gates and so I've got a camera crew. They got a long fishpole microphone, they call it, on a telescoping aluminum pole, and then a big tall microphone. And I'm asking Secretary Gates questions about the news in the newspapers that day about a scandal of some kind involving him and the CIA. Such a big deal, I don't even remember what it was. And Richard Nixon, and we're walking backward in front of them. And they have security people around them, a bunch of security people around them. And Richard Nixon held up his hand, his left hand, and I was right there in front of him. And President Nixon said, now just hold on a minute. Secretary Gates will answer all of your questions, or maybe he said Mr. Gates, will answer, later Secretary, will answer all of your questions at the end of the event, all right? And I said something like, thank you, Mr. President. And then I got back to asking Gates a couple more questions, and Gates sort of smiled or smirked, and they kept walking slowly, and we're walking backward. And Gates didn't answer any of the questions, and Richard Nixon said that Gates would answer all my questions after the end of the event. And we went in and we covered the event, cameras inside the event in a ballroom at the Four Seasons Hotel. And as the event was coming to an end, I could see that Gates was not going to take any questions. So Richard Nixon lied to me personally, which was kind of fun. The only time I ever met him, he told me something that turned out to be untrue. I don't think he meant to, honestly, but it's a funny part of the story. And I saw that the CIA security people started making a move for the side entrance exit in the back of the room. So I grabbed my camera crew. I said, pull off of sticks off the tripod. And we went mobile and looped around outside of the ballroom and made our way back to the service elevator. And as we made it to the service elevator, here comes Gates and his security detail rushing toward the elevator. And I offered him a couple more questions. And he smiled and shook his head and just kind of backed onto the elevator. And they went away down to the CIA motorcade, just a couple of vehicles, and President Nixon was still in the room, but he seemed very, very nice, very nice. Doc Vienna 33 asks, will Hillary run for president in 2024 if Biden drops out? The answer to that is hell yes. In fact, if Joe Biden ends up rolled up in a Persian rug in Fort Marcy Park out by the CIA like Vince Foster, then there will be a lot of questions. Yeah, but if Joe Biden decides not to run, you can definitely look for Hillary to get in. Definitely. No doubt about it.
People have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Okay. Now, more questions from the mailbag. Aqua Eyes asks, do you think your new TV show on Newsmax is replacing Hannity? on Fox News. Just really enjoy your show. Clever, witty, genuine, smart. Just for the record, I didn't choose the questions. I'm much too humble to choose that question. But listen, I think Newsmax is doing great and rising. A lot of people are leaving Fox News. It's true. Newsmax is rising and building, and I've only done the show 7 nights now. Tonight will be night number 8 doing the show. And I got to say, we're still learning. We're on a learning thing here. There is a curve. Have you heard that learning curve thing? There's a lot of that going on. Still learning to communicate. A lot of the people involved in the show are in New York. I'm in Washington. The show is done in Washington. So we're still in the getting to know you phase of the relationship. But I'm very hopeful. And look, it's done very well. We beat CNN the other night. Not setting the bar too high, but it's they've been around for a while, and this is a brand new show. So I'm very happy that Manderson Pooper lost to Chris Plant and the Right Squad on Newsmax, and that's great, right? So that's a good thing. Thank you, and thank you for watching, and tell your friends, and we'll try to keep it, a smart, witty, serious yet lighthearted show, on the issues of the day, but keep it fun. Like this show, hopefully. That's the big goal. Now, Sean Kennedy. No relation. Just kidding. Sean Kennedy says, millions of Kennedys. Since you've been to Antarctica, is there any more exotic place you haven't visited that you would like to visit? And, the truth is it's true, I've been to 7 continents now, and there are only 7 continents. I've been to Australia, but I haven't been to New Zealand. I'd like to go to New Zealand. And let me say this. I would like to, been to Israel. I like Israel, and I've been kind of over lots of the Middle East, and Central Asia is kind of a big hellhole, so who cares about that? All the stands and stuff like that. I've been to Vietnam, North Vietnam and South Vietnam, as I like to call it. This might sound a little funny. I'd like to go to Cambodia. I would like to go to Cambodia. And I'd like to visit Angkor Wat, the complex of temples in the jungle, ancient temples in Cambodia. And, when the Khmer Rouge, the commies, when they were there murdering millions of people, then it was no good. Although my stepfather was there. He did a number of tours as a news guy in Vietnam, as a reporter for CBS News. And he went into Cambodia in those days and was with the tribesmen in the mountains and things. And he made it to Angkor Wat. I would like to go to Cambodia. I'd like to go to Angkor Wat. I'd like to go to New Zealand. Not very exotic, but a place that I'd like to go. I'm running out of places to go, though.